Good evening, guys. So, how are you doing today? I can say I'm hanging in there. I'm doing good. You guys know I recently started a new job, and so far it's just been about like the HR portion of the orientation, a lot of info. But I've met some really cool people so far along the way, and it's been neat. That's probably one of my favorite things to do is meet new people and obtain different perspectives. I was even complimented for being very open-minded to someone who did question the way I look at things once they found out that I professionally read tarot and all this good stuff and my passion for sage crystals and rocks. And me and her actually hit it off, so much so she gave me her contact info after the fact, just to simply stay in touch. It really led to a really good conversation about religion and philosophy and all that good stuff. And so today, a lady who witnessed this interaction between me and the other person, she's like, I really like how you handled that. And like I told them even the day of when I was conversing with the one lady that I ended up befriending who did kind of like challenge my viewpoint on things. Spirit truly is multidimensional, very much like a diamond, very much think of various prisms and complexity. I believe all of the various faiths and belief systems are trying to assign some sort of meaning to this entity, the greater force that, created the earth. And even if people don't believe in a higher entity, I totally get that. They do have their own theories about how things came into being, but think about it. When they go outside, what ways do they kind of like feel at peace? That spirituality that resides in us does need tending. It's a part of who we are. So I thought that was kind of cool. That was like probably one of the biggest compliments I received as of recently, was just that I'm open-minded to being challenged. I'm not trying to, I'll be very plain. I'm not trying to hide who I am from people. They'll either like what I have to say or they won't, but their rejection of the way I look at things is not a reflection of me. It's just their rejection of that for them, because they're very much maybe, thinking about their value systems and the way they like to do things. And I say, why can't we all play on the same playground and hang out in whatever sandbox or on the swings or the monkey bars, whatever floats your boat, right? So, so yeah, that's a huge accomplishment for me, So tonight, we are delving into these swords again, and we are approaching the end of this journey, which with any suit in tarot out of those 78 cards, each of the 4 suits has the ace, which is 1, and it goes all the way to 10. So last night, if you haven't watched it, you need to watch it. Feel free to look in our group for the video about the 7 of Swords. It's also already downloaded on YouTube. So I've got all these various playlists. You can find it and play it at your convenience. It just makes it easier. Yes, I've been working this week, so I haven't been as busy in my group. But usually there's so many different posts for different things, it would be hard to scroll down and find the video that you're looking for. So this is what we covered last night. And so in short, which I won't go through this tarot teaching moment again, this is just a brief summation. The 7 of Swords is the thief card. This is somebody who's literally or figuratively taking something from somebody else and very sneakily doing so, right? So tonight we are moving into a new card, which is this one, the 8 of Swords. I want you to take in the color usage, what color means to you, the various descriptors we generally use when we talk about color. How does this card feel to you? Does it feel comfortable or not comfortable? What's going on around the central figure, and look very much so at what's in the background, what the ground that they're standing upon. Look at the posture of the central figure, the garments, what those could mean, and what the swords could mean that are in the ground and, you know, for the most part surrounding her. It's not a complete circle, you know. So I say let's delve right in. So here is the Roman numeral for 8. What we're seeing here is somebody who's very much feeling like a victim, trapped, helpless, and powerless over some area of their life, or maybe it's various aspects of their life. Who's to say this is just one tidy thing, right? So what we have here is this person, okay, was done wrong in the 7 of Swords. So they're carrying that energy forward, and they are feeling very much a victim at this point. They doubt themselves. So this blindfold that she's wearing stands for different things. So it shows this individual is turning inward. So this is very synonymous of that hermit time of trying to gain that inward reflection and even reflect on the intuitive, which is very much part of our internal dialogue. Now, note that the ribbon that's wrapped around her is not around her legs. Okay, it looks to me like it falls right around, say, the upper hip region, maybe a little around her buttock area, kind of loosely draped back here. And the way that the swords are not even fully around her. This is a prison. That's how I kind of want you to think about it, is kind of think of a prison that she has constructed. And when I say she, again, sex doesn't matter. We're talking about the energy, okay? So they've turned inward because they have felt very powerless about their life. They have given their personal power over to someone else, maybe to an organization. It could be to fate, like no responsibility whatsoever, say, to their outcomes to various things. They've resigned it to fate, or even their faith. They just are at that point, because we're approaching especially the end of a very long, arduous journey. A journey through the swords is not an easy task whatsoever, and is a very painful one. Again, these swords are double-edged, so with truth comes pain. There's a cost. There has to be an even exchange, okay, generally speaking, for energy. So when we say discover a truth, there's got to be some, generally speaking, some discomfort, growing pains to accompany that, okay? She can break free at any time of this prison that she has constructed for herself. And she is not doing so. This is her choice, with it being in the upright position. She is choosing not to take the power and authority over her life, to have an intent and manifest it to see a different result. And so note her feet. So we have this foot, which is making contact with the ground. And with the ground, we very much have objectivity and logic, which the swords love logic. Again, this is synonymous, the swords are, with the element of air, which is all about action, logic, communication. So she does have one toe, like her foot's over here. However, here's another one that is in, say, a body of water. So even though, you know, swords love their logic, emotion is certainly in play here, very much commingled, mixed in with logic. We're seeing both here. And in the background, we are seeing a mountainous region, almost insurmountable in appearance. She's on the lowest, like when somebody says they've hit rock bottom, this is the feeling of this central figure. She is literally at the bottom of what appears to be a mountainous region. And so we see this castle in the background, and the roof is red. So victory. When you see the castle, we're thinking victory, accomplishment, valor. Okay, she's not feeling any of this right now. If anything, her goals seem so far out of reach, and she's very much inside her own head about things. And with this blindfold, she does not have clarity. And she's at a loss. This is a very kind of like dark energy that we're talking about with this card. Like I told you guys, the Swords is not an easy suit to go through whatsoever. The gray sky, which with this card, it's more so actually white, but generally speaking, in other descriptions of the card, it's a gray sky. That stands for just a very grim overall atmosphere. Okay, so with here again, though, yeah, they didn't bother really filling this in much as far as color goes. And some things that I saw when I researched the card. So another interpretation of the ground is it's mud. And so this is kind of getting lost in the murk, like the murkiness of mud, not having that clarity to really understand and see things for what they are with water. Think of if you look through clear water that you can see all the way down to the bottom and see the fish and the various rocks and so forth at, say, the bottom. Like I think of the water in the Bahamas, like many years ago, Tim and I went there. They've got the prettiest blue water, and when you go snorkeling and you can look straight down at the bottom, like it's beautiful. And then in sharp contrast, I think of my time in the military, when I was in the Navy and we would pull up to a port and the water is very polluted and you cannot at all see past the surface. So then that would be a sharp contrast. We don't have the clarity there. So for love, this is somebody who, whether it be romantic or platonic, they feel trapped in a relationship. So this is where, say boundaries are not set by this central figure and things are spiraled out of control. To where it's negatively impacted their life, and they've given up their ability to have some sort of control. They may very much feel like if they don't really have much of a support system or limited resources, they may feel like they really can't get a handle on the situation. This could be, say, a relationship that's fizzled out, but they don't want to really take the power to have that painful interaction of saying, that this has been great and all, but that spark is not there anymore. Instead of just doing it because, say, they may be financially dependent on the person. There may be other reasons they feel bound to this person. If it's a single person, they have totally relinquished the get up and go to as far as finding somebody and taking those moves and those chances. They are very resigned, thinking, the right person will find me, without putting forth the effort. And it could be very much related to they have a lot of past trauma and hurt from relationships. They, again, with this in an upright position, do not feel very confident about who they are and what they would be able to bring to a relationship. If it's, say, a friendship, this could be somebody, say, who was invited to, say, a group of friends who went to hang out. And instead of feeling included in the conversation with, say, people showing an interest in them, instead it would be the opposite, where they were not included. They felt like a little wallflower. Nobody took an interest in them. If they did, another way of looking at it would be kind of like that movie with Lindsay Lohan, Mean Girls, where she did not feel like she belonged to that group. Like she really wanted to, but they ended up not accepting her at first, before she ultimately joined the group and took it over in the movie, which I know is a cult classic is what they call it. But that's how Lindsay Lohan felt, because she initially was the pretty girl who was smart with math, part of the mathletes in the movie. And she had the little alternative friends who didn't belong to any of the major cliques. Didn't even feel like a need to do so, because they were the opposite of the upright energy. They liked who they were. They liked that they were friends with each other. And that was enough for them. So again, if you haven't seen that movie, it's a cute movie. I like it. It's probably one of my favorites. I haven't seen it in a while, but I really liked it. Now with, say, career, this is feeling, of course, that general theme of feeling trapped, powerless at a job, to where, say, somebody stays in a position because they're financially dependent on that job to, say, provide for their family and pay the bills. They may want to switch it up and do something different, but they may not feel like they have the time. Again, they may not feel like they have the resources as far as like the money that it takes to go back to school. Again, time does factor in with that, because studies do demand time. Sorry, I'm just kind of getting some, sometimes my sinuses are acting up a bit this time of year with how we're in spring, and that's a good thing though, but not to get sidetracked. And then with finances, we're looking at that situation doesn't look so great. And so instead of kind of looking at ways to maybe get it to a better place, somebody is very much in a funk and sad and feeling powerless, and they just don't feel like they have the options to improve that. So I'm going to read some of the upright meanings here. So let's see here. So with this card, I think it's important to bring this up because I pulled these cards for comparison. Rachel Pollack, in her book Tarot Wisdom, actually compared the energy of the central figure to the devil from the major arcana. So this is a very loose fence, okay, of this central figure's own making, with the ribbon kind of like loosely tied around her, including all that. She could easily break free and walk out of this if she wanted to. She chooses to stay there, right? Well, when we're looking at the devil card, and I won't go over this card again, you can like totally look at like YouTube to find my tarot teaching moment on the devil. But you see how loose the chains here are? These are people these are chains of their own making. Okay, so with this one, for example, her tail has grapes on it. Her vice is wine. Okay, here it's the flame. So we're talking about that love of power. At any point in time, these two figures, which are very reminiscent of Adam and Eve, could totally lift these chains up from above their head and leave this feeling bound, which is what the devil means from the major arcana in 2 words, just feeling bound. Also trapped. But this is a prison of their own making. They're allowing that vice in whatever shape or form it takes to take over their life, which I felt the Tarot of the Abyss did a really good job showing how this figure here, instead of being able to take flight, feels very tied down and bound, and this is very hard on the heart. Okay? So there, again, we're feeling bound. So I really like how Rachel Pollack made that connection. Let's see here. So let's see. So for descriptors, we have feeling trapped, bad experiences with doubt. that they will improve. Anxious, afraid, frustrated, unhappy, feeling isolated and vulnerable. So this central character, they are not asking for help. Very much confused, murky thoughts. They lack that clarity. The character at this point does not realize that they can release themselves from the bonds that they have put on themselves. They are feeling weak, helpless. This is repetitious thought patterns, self-victimization. So Rachel Pollack had mentioned with the number 8, we have the infinity symbol. So here, what this card stands for is breaking the repetitive patterns that we self-impose on ourselves, okay, or the person we're reading for. It's a destructive pattern that they have to where no, they can't advance in life. If that makes sense, they keep repeating the same pattern or patterns because they're not learning that responsibility, ownership, that level of control, taking their power back in order to break away from the upright energy of the card. And then we're about to delve into the reverse. So just let that sink in. And really, like we've talked about, especially recently with the swords, there's a lot of energy with this because a lot of pain, discomfort, growing pains like I had talked about. It is so easy and tempting within any narrative to paint myself or yourself out to be the victim. However, to break that destructive pattern, which is this energy, how important it is to reframe whatever that is, no matter how bleak it is, into taking our power back and thinking about various ways that we can break cycles, which would be that infinity with number 8, this pattern of feeling trapped and isolated and helpless and not asking for help. And it's okay because people need people, but just let that sink in. Rachel Pollack mentioned that in her book as far as the repetition of patterns with that infinity symbol because we're dealing with the number 8. She also alluded to the devil card that I had just showed you as far as that's like the energy of feeling bound and trapped. I certainly agree with that. So with the swords, they form a fence around her. Where there is the gap, she could leave at any point in time. She chooses not to. Standing in the mud, again, we do not have clarity. It's very murky. And it's supposed to be also represent shame. Kind of like, you drug me through the mud. That's another saying. Think about what that saying means. Well, this person's standing in the mud. The bonds, again, are not around her legs, so she could leave this loosely constructed fence of swords at any time. She chooses not to. The blindfold stands for confusion, isolation, very much in her own head and turned inward, trying to seek logic and clarity. Again, emotions play a part in this because she's standing in the mud. We have water, which in tarot is synonymous with emotion, because again, we're briefly touching on that cups energy, which is all about water. Let's see. And then generally speaking, in other cards, I'd mentioned the gray sky. So we're looking at when you see a gray sky, it's a very despairing, bleak outlook. So let's see here. So this is also, it's important to note, it is not a good time to make important decisions because we lack clarity. There is confusion with this card. So if someone gets this, it's not a good idea to tell them, okay, well, you've made yourself a victim in this and that. You need, to take your power back right now. If anything, this shows that, yeah, we've got that devil energy going on that we're talking about. This person is very much feeling hurt, vulnerable, turned inward, very confused. And this, when we see the figure turning inward, we think back to the hermit from the Major Arcana who goes atop a mountaintop and stands over a cliff with his lantern, with the star inside the lantern, which stands for hope. Okay, which is a playback on, say, the star card from the Major Arcana. And when the Hermit from the Major Arcana seeks the solitude, it is to obtain that clarity on an issue, but ultimately the Hermit is not going to stay on the mountain with this newfound lesson, enlightenment, knowledge. He's going to retreat off the mountain and share it with other people so they don't have to go through it. And that, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, to help other people along on this path. So I think that we're seeing a lot of different energy, predominantly the devil, but we're also seeing the Hermit with this being turned inward, you know? So yeah, so even though we would tell like ourselves, if we're reading for ourselves, which I know can be difficult because we do have bias, or if we're reading for other people, we would tell them the ultimate goal would be to take their power back. That's not a simple thing like that, especially because we've got a pattern. We've got the number 8, which is an infinity symbol. We need to break that pattern. So it depends on what the issue is, but there's no shame whatsoever in obtaining professional help. So this could be in the form of them seeing their medical doctor. If it's a health issue, they're afraid of going to obtain medical care because they're afraid of what they'll find out. I've had people I've read for even tell me that, or even patients I've cared for. They dread going to the doctor because they don't know what information that they're going to be told that they totally didn't expect to hear and how it will impact their life. So it's kind of like the ignorance is bliss kind of thing. But they may need to look at professional help, okay, as well as like a psychiatrist, a counselor. Our mental health is just as important as our physical health. Let that sink in. Because it's a false myth when people think that physical health has more value, even in the medical community, which is not true, versus mental. Both feed off each other. And so if we don't take care of our mental and emotional health, it will physically manifest. They were actually teaching about that today, about how people who, from an emotional viewpoint, if they're very depressed or anxious, they feel lonely. That's a theme of this card. They feel very lonely. They don't have anybody to talk to. They're 3 times more likely to have a cardiac event. Let that sink in. 3 times more likely to have a cardiac event with their heart due to loneliness and isolation. And that really was an interesting viewpoint when you think about the pandemic and how we had to isolate from each other and the negative impact that had on people. You know? So I thought that was really interesting. So with love, I mentioned it's like feeling trapped. It's a single person maybe being a little too passive and not taking the initiative, you know, to say meet somebody romantically or to form a friendship, and kind of putting themselves out there and not being afraid of being rejected. Because again, when this card's upright, we don't have confidence. With career, it's feeling trapped with limited resources. Possible ways to address that would be forming a budget. Maybe a small business. What is something, say you or the person you're reading for has a knack or a talent for, that they would love to very much start a business and have some sort of revenue for it. Student loans, if they want to go back to school, maybe have that discussion about good ways of obtaining student loans and maybe not obtaining the private loans like a certain person did when they went through school. Private loans are not good. Encouraging them to talk to the professional who's good. So like at the college they want to go to, getting in touch with the financial aid office and discussing like, hey, you know, I've always wanted to do this. I'm very strapped on cash or whatnot. How do I obtain that goal without going into a lot of debt, and looking at scholarships? So a lot of it too is assessing for resources and sharing the info with others. Especially with people who may not have internet access, or if they're elderly, especially, they may not be tech savvy and they may not have a desire to be tech savvy. So that's a way of empowering them to take their power back. With finances, again, it's a very grim outlook. It's getting creative with money making, to address our financial situation. So when we're looking at the reversal of this card, we're generally speaking about the opposite of the upright meaning. So this would be the central figure freeing themselves from these lightly secured bonds that she has around herself and simply walking away out of this fence of swords with that big gap in the front, just leaving her situation, knowing that she can progressively and with time take that mountain and obtain victory, and all that good stuff, that light at the end of the tunnel. It is accessible, but it's going to take time and consistent work and effort to manifest that. So this is also meaning asking for help again. So this person right now is not, again, they're confused and very much turned inward, like we were talking about. When we have the reversed energy, that means that they're looking at resources and they're seeking help from others or from within their support system. They are no longer feeling trapped. Let's see, we've got the blindfold coming off. It's seeing a situation with clarity versus when it was upright, we did not have clarity. When it's in reversed, we do have clarity. It's breaking destructive or negative thought patterns. Again, we're going to break that infinity symbol as far as with this energy of this card. We're going to break those repetitious patterns that we put on ourselves that cause us to fail repetitively, causing us to feel the upright energy. Here, we're taking our power back when it's in reverse. So we have some descriptors would be freedom, release, taking control, and feeling empowered. It's taking back your power in life, and that takes time. Again, we're breaking negative thought patterns and behaviors. And that's why sometimes it's good to say, even me, I do tarot for myself, and I've done it for years, reading for myself. I every so often do like somebody else reading my cards because they may see a perspective I just didn't see because of my own personal bias. That's why it's really good, even when you get good at this, to seek readings from other people. Let's see. So we have that confidence in changing things with themselves, which also they can manifest in the world with that change. And they're basically cleaning out their theoretical or literal closet, making room for new energy. So as long as we hold on to clothes that don't fit us, that make us feel bad when we wear them, holding on to the past failures, past hurt, and our closet, figuratively, is too full of these various things. We need to let them go, to leave room in our theoretical closets to invite that new positive energy into our lives. Okay, and we can attract abundance, which when I say attracting abundance, I am kind of very much touching upon that King of Pentacle energy. And by that energy, what I'm loosely talking about with the King of Pentacle energy would be being so well-to-do with life and resources. They're comfortable and all that good stuff. They're able to be generous and share it with others. They project, they give that abundance out into the universe, and they know the universe is just going to multiply that by tenfold. They're going to attract abundance because they put that out there. So that touches back on energy. We get back what we put out there. So for positive, we're generally speaking going to get more positive things, positive interactions with others and life happenings. It's not to say fate doesn't happen. Life happens and negative things happen. But it's going to be a better, more positive mindset versus a negative one where someone has the Eight of Swords, where they feel like they're a victim, they're powerless. Why? Like, for example, if you work with somebody, why this place is horrible, nothing will ever change. Why don't we do things this way? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they're talking this or that. Nothing will ever change. I know we've all heard that, or we've even been guilty of thinking it ourselves. But with that negative thought pattern, it determines our perception and our reality. We have already, and the brain is a powerful thing, we have already made up in our minds that our reality, which is our perception, is negative. So it's going to be colored negatively. However, if we reframe even some of our hardest days with a positive outlook, seeing where we can take our power back and to get to a more positive place, then we're not embracing this energy. We've got the reverse, where we're not going to just give our power up like here. We're going to take it back, whether, whatever means necessary, and to be patient with this endeavor. Now, with it being from the minor arcana, we're talking, generally speaking, about the usual general minor inconveniences in life. So in sharp contrast to the devil, this is like major arcana influence. Okay, so this would be like addictions, for example. Here, this is like life happenings, the ups and downs of life, and how sometimes that self-pity, we feel so sorry for ourselves, right? When it's upright. Okay. So back to reversals. So with our love, career, and finances, we're breaking those patterns and removing those blocks. We're determining our intent, and we're acting upon it to manifest it. We're taking our power back. We're asking for help from other people, So I think, let's see here, that sums up what I wanted to review as far as the meanings of the card. I see that somebody just hopped on, so no worries about that. I'm about to go through the other cards to compare with the Rider-Waite-Smith. Oh, it finally gave me the name. I couldn't make out the little circle in the corner. Hi, Jen. And yes, I am still live here, Jen. I'm a chatty person. I was going really in depth about this card. So, of course, feel free, once I wrap things up after I go over these cards, to play it back from the beginning, because I went into a lot of different things with the symbols and the meanings of the card. I'm so glad you're here. I saw your post earlier about the inquiring about the name of the tarot deck I used for our card of the day, and I'm like, darn it, I'm off my game a little bit, because I'm posting the card of the day, but I'm usually better about putting the name of the deck out of respect for the artist. And awesome. I'm glad you'll be able to watch the replay. So I'm already thinking about doing a show and tell with the Tarot of the Owls tomorrow by Pamela Chen. I may very well do it because I'm actually working from home tomorrow, doing a lot of learning modules that they're paying me for. So I got to work on my computer for 8 hours. So I'll probably be looking for a break in the monotony by the time I'm done with all that. I'll look to see if I can do like that little go live tomorrow where I'll show that deck off. I just was looking at that deck last night. Oh, it's such a beautiful deck, Jen. Very cool. So I don't know if tomorrow, I'm thinking maybe around, I don't know if this will work for you. Let me know if it does. I'm thinking maybe around 5 p.m. Or I could even do a 7 p.m. if that would be better. If you have one of those times to hop on, I could do like a go live, kind of like I did the last time with the Buffy, the Vampire Slayer deck, and just kind of go through them. So you can kind of see each card and, unless you totally know already you want to totally get it. But I'm thinking maybe other people in our group would like to check it out too. And when I saw that deck online through Llewellyn, I'm like, oh, I totally got to get that. I love birds in general, and it's just so colorful and fun. Whatever is best for you, your schedule. Oh, thank you, Jen. So in that case, I don't know. I may very well look at, we'll go ahead and maybe shoot for 5 p.m. tomorrow, where I can hop on here and go through it, and then it'll be well before the tarot teaching moment too. And then I get to visit with you more too. So let's see. So with the 8 of Swords, so here we have a little bit of a different interpretation. So with the Rider-Waite-Smith, she is not bound around her legs. Okay, this is just like her arms and say her torso, abdomen, that area, right? She can easily break free. Well, here the artist chose to even bind the legs here. And then it looks to be like chaos. So it's like wind is blowing. But the blindfold is not even completely over both eyes, and this eye is closed. So again, we have the common theme of being turned inward. They have given up their power, so the swords are laying on the ground. She is very much still a prisoner. She's in a prison of her own making, but instead of having the swords, say, surround her, like in the Rider-Waite-Smith, we have them on the ground, but you see how they're all pointing forward. So she's going to remain in this self-made prison, okay, to the point where she removes this binding and the blindfold and takes those first steps forward to break that pattern, like we were talking about with the number 8, synonymous with the infinity symbol, breaking those negative thought patterns so that we don't keep repeating and having those same failures. Ah, very cool. And Jen says, I'm home tomorrow as far as I know. Very cool. And say if something happens, you could always catch me on the replay too, Jen. I get that life happens. And then here we've got our little crow friend. And it's in a fairly, reasonably constructed prison of its own making. And this little guy, if it wanted to, it could break out of its own binds too. So we still have that feeling of feeling bound. We have a lot of clouds, overcast sky, things feel grim. There is no forward action taking place here. So I liked how that carried over. And instead of having the castle up on a hill with the red roof, standing for that victory and valor, and how it's so high up to where it's almost like unobtainable, here it's like the ribbon is colored red. And I think that's very intentional too. Just feeling bound and not succeeding, and feeling very much the victim, So I really, really like that. And I like the use of mountains in this card. So again, this is not an easy place to be at. That would be another common theme with those cards, would be the mountainous regions, okay? With this one, we have a lady. If you look at it, she is not truly bound at all. If anything, she is feeling vulnerable given her body posture. Okay, the way she's sitting in front of that mirror. But you see how in her mind she sees herself very much bound. And with the loose string that these birds are using to wrap around her, she could easily break free and remove the blindfold. But she sees that there's a need to turn inward. Again, feeling vulnerable, feeling like the victim, at a loss for how to move forward. I really, really like that, And you see the clever use of the darkness here to where it feels like the darkness is in the periphery closing in. So very creative use with that color. With this, from the Hush Tarot, we have this central figure and she's turned inward. Okay, so that's a common theme. We have some flowers around her that are in the process of blooming but have not bloomed. And we've got more of like the beige color used in the background with this. And she does have a garment on, which toward the bottom of it looks like maybe it ties around the waist maybe. So maybe that's symbolic of the bonds and feeling bound. Maybe it's an uncomfortable garment. But again, this deck is not based on Rider-Waite-Smith. So it would be confusing for somebody who's learning. And so that's why it is good to have a deck based on Rider-Waite-Smith, And I'm just holding up the cards side by side so you can take in similar color usage, symbols that transfer over, how these cards feel, what the central figures are doing in the cards, And again, it's always nice when things carry over. It makes it a lot easier to learn new decks when they're based on Rider-Waite-Smith, But again, once we break that negative pattern that we see with figure 8, which could also be seen as the infinity symbol, breaking it, whether, we seeking help from others, professional help, leaning on our support system and looking resources. With the reversal, That also dismisses the myth that all reversals are bad. So, like, again, the reversal for this card would be releasing this negative energy and these thought patterns and taking the power back and going ahead and using that, that logic and that clarity to go up that mountain and have victory, and just being patient that, change takes time, and it's okay if we fail. We just get up and we keep going, So I think that covers what I wanted to discuss with the Eight of Swords. And so tomorrow I'll be back with the Nine of Swords. We're almost there, guys. We're almost toward the end of the suit. And like I was talking with my friend Jen, I'll look at doing a go live around 5 p.m. tomorrow with the Tarot of the Owls, which I will go ahead and post about that in our group for anybody who wants to check the deck out before they buy it. It would be one I recommend because it's based on Rider-Waite-Smith. So I think, it would be a good one to take in and watch, even on a replay. And I think that's the gist of it. So if you have any questions or comments about the video, feel free to leave them here in our group. And you can check me out on YouTube. You'll find all the tarot teaching moments there. So, Jen, I love you as my friend. And you're more than welcome. And Tim, I see you hopped on toward the very end. I love you because you're my husband. You're my ball and chain. I'm joking. No, you're not. All righty. Good night, guys. Bye.